The reality is like a matrix. This is not just a movie metaphor, but a model that is increasingly being confirmed by observations in quantum physics, psychology, and the phenomena of human perception. If this is true, and the world around us is subject not to external laws, but to the internal code of consciousness, then a natural question arises. Can this code be rewritten? Is it possible to program your reality for yourself? The point is that reality is not objective. It is not rigid or fixed. It is like a liquid that takes the form of the vessel it is poured into, and this vessel is attention. Energy flows wherever attention is directed, and where there is energy, there is growth, materialization, and manifestation. Consciousness is a projector. It does not reflect the world, but transmits it. The one who understands this stops being a hostage to the situation. He steps out of the role of a LED character and becomes a player, or more accurately, a programmer. To understand how the reality matrix works, you need to abandon conventional logic. This is because logic is a product of an already loaded program. It explains what has already been created, but cannot explain the mechanism of creation. The matrix reacts not to logical conclusions, but to the frequency of vibrations, to the emotional and energetic background, to a signal. Every person emits a signal, a combination of thoughts, emotions, expectations, and internal beliefs. This signal is what forms the version of reality that a person sees. It's like a radio receiver. You can't hear a 101 wave if you are tuned to 93. To change reality, a desire is not enough. You need to change the signal. In this understanding, the matrix is not your enemy. It does not suppress. It only reflects like a mirror, but not in a plane, but in the entire volume of life. If something in the reflection is not satisfactory, it's useless to change the reflection. You need to change the source, the signal of consciousness. There is a concept of external intention. This is not forcing the world to fulfill your will, but allowing the desired to come in the most natural way. External intention is like an order to the universe, placed without fear, without tension, without attachment. It is an act of trust, not in the world, but in yourself, in your connection with this world. Reality is a feedback system. The more consciousness is invested in it, the more it responds. Conversely, passivity, automatism, and living on reactions create the feeling that the world is chaotic, aggressive, and unfair. It's not that reality is like that. It's just the firmware that is in consciousness. Any firmware is a program, and a program can be rewritten. The key to this is observation, awareness, and attention to yourself. This is because it is impossible to rewrite the matrix without understanding how it was written. Everything starts with thoughts, but not those that rush on the surface, but with deep convictions. It is they that create the background frequency. For example, if there is a deep-seated belief, "I am unworthy," then any positive affirmations will just be a layer of paint on rust. The signal will not change, and reality will remain the same. Rewriting the code begins with exposing the code, without illusions, without self-deception. It's like finding a virus in the system, unpleasant, but necessary. The conscious recognition of one's current firmware is the first step to a new reality. The next step is choice. Not a struggle with the old, not a denial, but a choice of the new. Consciousness, unlike the subconscious, knows how to choose. And if the choice is made clearly, with intention, without internal conflict, the subconscious picks up the new scenario. Working with attention is the main tool of the reality programmer. Where attention is, there is life. materialization. The system begins to form events that confirm what attention is directed to. It is important to understand that the matrix does not distinguish between good and bad. It does not judge. It does not check if the desire is deserved. It just reflects. This excludes the concept of guilt, and this is liberating. If consciousness is filled with fear, the matrix will reflect scenarios that amplify fear. If there is gratitude, calmness, and confidence in consciousness, the world begins to transmit feedback at these frequencies. The entire focus is on maintaining the desired frequency. This does not mean that you have to be constantly positive. That is an illusion. But it is possible to be conscious. The ability to observe your reactions, not to merge with them, but to see and choose, is where the power lies. Not in the control over the external, but in the freedom of internal choice. The matrix is not susceptible to force or violence. It responds to the frequency. To become a subject means to take responsibility not for everything that happens, but for how it is interpreted. It is the interpretation that starts the internal process, and the internal process is the signal setting. The matrix does not react to events, but to the vibrations you cause. Setting reality is a practice, not a one-time act, but a lifestyle. It is a constant dialogue with yourself. It is the rejection of unconscious reactions. It is the readiness to be attentive to thoughts, emotions, and your state. Reality is not a fixed construction, it is a flow. And this flow responds to every internal impulse, sometimes with a delay, sometimes paradoxically, but always in resonance with the signal of consciousness. The matrix is programmed, but the code is open, and every person realizing this can become an editor. Not a destroyer, but an editor. This is because changing reality does not mean denying the old. It means offering a new version, a more accurate, more personal one. This is what freedom is. Not in rejecting the world, but in understanding that the world is a screen, and behind the screen is a projector. If you change the film, the movie will be different. This knowledge is not a philosophy. It is a tool, a key. All that's left is to take it in your hands.